Do you like the Dreamcast? I love the Dreamcast, and that's why I'm on a mission to complete every single game on the system. There are almost 300 English language releases, and I want you to join me in my adventure to completing them all. The games are chosen completely at random. Last week we took a look at The House of the Dead 2, an all-time classic. Well, now it's time for a game no one has ever heard of, Moho! Moho! Also known in North America as Ball Breakers. Moho Ball Breakers, that's an amazing set of names, but that might be the best thing about it. How can you live up to being called Moho? This was developed by Lost Toys, who only had like 2 games, and published by Take-Two Interactive. Released in late 2000 on the Dreamcast in Europe, the North American version was planned but cancelled. It also appeared on the PlayStation 1 a bit earlier, and that one did release in North America. Before we get into it, be sure to hit that like button if you like what this series is going for. I don't normally beg early, but I genuinely would love this series to take off and more people to see it. So yeah, I do need your help in that. Also, if you want to help out even more, check out my Patreon. You get loads of great perks alongside getting to watch these episodes a week earlier than everyone else, and ad-free of course. So, this game is a bit like, I want to say, Marble Madness mixed with Gladiators, the TV show. Sadly, there's no jet in here, otherwise that would be an instant 10 out of 10 game. It's a physics-based competitive game where there are multiple events and you have to come out on top. The story is only right at the beginning with the intro, but we are essentially in a maximum security prison for synthetic life forms, a prison for bad robots. But they can win their freedom if they take part in some gladiatorial-like events, and that's it really. Hey, so what if you commit a massacre? As long as you juggle a few balls and avoid a little bit of fire, you are free to go. There are a small handful of robots that you can use, and they supposedly have their own stats. I had no idea which one would be a good pick, so I went with the one with the spread out stats. I ended up with this hooded edgelord. I mean, who knew robots could be emo? That's AI gone too far. I mean, there's already enough miserable meatbags on this earth. We don't need metal ones as well. So there is a pretty self-explanatory progress to this game. You have different prisons, each with increasing difficulty. If you want to get further, you need to earn medals by completing the events within the already unlocked prisons. To complete this game, I am going to say I will complete the events within the final prison unlock. Does that sound alright? Alright, so yeah, to stop myself being tedious and telling you my opinions on each and every one of the dozens and dozens of same-ish things, I'll just give you a rundown of the different types of events that I came across. Run the Gauntlet seemed to be the most common event in this game, and it's a standard obstacle course type jobbo. You have to get to the end within the time limit, and with your robot still intact, of course. There are an increasing amount of hazards getting in your way: lasers, flamethrowers, deadly puddles, electric spikes, and a brute or two who are ready to give you a good whacking. You can fight back or defend, but there's not much strategy to it. It's very easy to get overwhelmed and surrounded, but you can do a spinny attack to get them off your back. I like what this is going for. The issue is, though, especially the further on you get, the more the levels demand perfection, because there's often water everywhere, and you ain't getting out of it once you're in it. Any slight error and you'll be restarting the whole thing. Levels don't seem that long, the time limits rarely go past 3 minutes, and for the gold medal, you'll be tasked most of the time completing them in under 1 minute. But the levels, you will have to play them over and over and over again to complete them. It's a physics-based game at heart, and your movement is very sluggish and either having too much momentum or not enough, leading you to overshoot your mark and not being able to jump far enough. It can be quite frustrating. Maybe it's not easy to see from this video, but you are always fighting against inertia of sorts. Pursuit is just like Run the Gauntlet, just with a slight extra challenge in the fact that the floor starts to collapse behind you, meaning you really can't stay in one spot and think about it. In my never-ending insistence of charging into challenges without thinking, I didn't even notice the difference between Run the Gauntlet and this one until one time my wife was handing me a cup of coffee and the ground decided to swallow me up. Of the events I consider doable, i.e. not the races, these are the toughest ones, as they do not pull any punches and you have to be absolutely perfect and you have no time to rest and consider your next move. Last Man Rolling is a good old round of fisticuffs. Thankfully, since the combat is less than stellar, these aren't particularly common, you just have to defeat all the opponents. As I said earlier, it's very easy to get completely surrounded, which makes the challenge quite great sometimes, because tactically, you're going to want to pop them off one by one, but you're also up against the clock. There is the opportunity to pick up weapons occasionally, and these seriously help out, but even then, you still have to pick your battles very carefully. King of the Hill, I think, is my favorite mode. It's something everyone's familiar with in how it plays, even if it can come in slightly different guises. Back when I was a student and had nothing else to do but play Call of Duty, the version on there was always a favorite for me alongside Capture the Flag. You just have to be the lone person in a set area for a certain amount of time. Usually involves whacking the crap out of anyone else who comes close. And it was mostly easy thanks to it being elevated. You can just knock opponents off fairly hassle-free. In fact, I think I completed the majority of these the first time of trying. Maybe one I had to do a second time, but I always loved it when I entered a new prison and saw King of the Hill sitting there for an easy medal. My time with this game would end quickly. Race is by far and away the most painful and dire of events. It's just pure misery as you and 4 AI robots go around a painfully boring track for what feels like an eternity, and they are almost always impossible unless you are perfect. You literally need to hit each and every one of the boost pads if you want any chance of winning, and even if you do, you also have to cross your balls for good luck to make sure you don't waste it by bashing into an opponent and taking away all your momentum. It will kill the entire run. Even the first one, I found utterly bereft of joy, and to be honest, the rest of them I just skipped until I actually really needed to do them. Like right in the end game where I just needed like 1 or 2 more medals to scrape over the mark for the final prison, I did go back and try to do some of them. Maybe it's the robot I'm playing as, maybe it's just terrible at races, but I tried every possible way to cheese the track if possible, but no, the rules were quite strict on that. Powerball is a mode that could be a game in and of itself, if it was actually handled with care. You have to pick up metal balls and lob them at lampposts. It's something bored kids would come up with when their moms tell them, you can't watch Twitch anymore. It's alright, I suppose, just a bit lifeless. They try to throw in some hazards or enemy robots to put you off, but rarely do they get in the way. I suppose it was tolerable at best. Tag doesn't live up to its name at all. You're thinking it's a game of tag, you're it. Maybe with a ticking bomb for those who, got tagged, maybe a hot potato type vibe, but no, that would be far too interesting. Instead, you have to collect all the tokens in a level. Usually it's pretty easy. I guess there's an efficient route that one should take, but even just casually bumbling around, I managed to do most of them first time of trying. So there is a decent amount of variety. The problem is, that variety isn't very fun. Remember when games used to be fun? Yeah, this is not fun. Sure, there's a challenge. A lot of people get fun from challenge, and this can be challenging, oh for sure, but the majority of the time you're just frustrated and mildly indifferent as to what's going on. It can be extremely challenging, and it was rare for me to get through an event first time of trying, mostly the token collections and King of the Hill. I guess I was alright at those, but the silver medals aren't even the real challenge because there's a gold medal award for doing the event in a super quick time. I was actually quite surprised how many of these I managed the first time of trying because, I never went back to play a level again. Why would I do that? It's not fun. I just gradually made my way through. Sometimes it was super frustrating because the difficulty seemed up and down. Sometimes the physics or controls couldn't decide what the rules were. Like sometimes, if I moved forward, I had to use the shoulder button, whereas other times, it would let me use the analog stick. Sometimes, I would stop dead from movement if I let go. Other times, I would have inertia, momentum. It took me absolutely ages to realize you have sort of a power meter at the bottom, which if activated, I guess, magnetizes your robot, but you can't turn it off, and any movement you make makes it go down. And even after 6.5 hours of completing this game, I still don't really get what it's all about. I don't fully understand it. I guess I should have read the manual, but by the time I realized what was going on, I was right at the end anyways. Either way, it confused me greatly throughout. The final prison is really different to the previous ones, which were almost identical aside from, increasing difficulty. I was absolutely bobbing myself worried that I might have to be forced to do a race event, like actually complete a race event. In fact, it seemed like it would be an inevitability. Every prison had one up to this point, sometimes even multiple. But oh my god, You don't know the relief I felt when I saw that they were all run the gauntlet, aside from the first one, which is last man standing. Unlike the rest of the game, you are forced to do the first event first. Before, you could just do them in any order you wanted. And the first one was maybe the toughest too, because you've got this tiny little arena, you're getting ganged up on, and when you defeat one of them, they blow up, which can actually hurt you. There's nowhere to hide. But whacking everyone with a stick, that seemed to do the job eventually. Weirdly, after that, all the other events unlocked aside from 2. I could understand the last one, but the third to last one? Why is that still blocked out? It became clear quite soon though, because these last run the gauntlets, all of them end in a boss battle, and the bosses are the other robot characters, so that means the one that couldn't be played was the character I was playing as. I can't fight myself physically. Maybe we could have an internal psychological battle later on, yeah? Just you and me? Of course, these are on the whole fairly tough, but still, most of them easier than some of these super unfair ones I'd already suffered through. This one's just a dick though. You immediately get stun locked with a laser as soon as the level begins. How is that fair? The easiest one was Lockdown's Lair. Since it's the only one that didn't have any platforming in it, it might as well have been a fighting event instead. They're not even particularly special. Even the final level is a bit anticlimactic. The only cool thing about it is that it took me a while to figure out how to get past this laser that didn't stop like they usually did. There was no switch, no way to jump around, so it kept tripping me up. Of course, you have to use the enemy as a sort of a meat shield, throwing them in front of it, allowing you to pass. That's kinda cool. And the final boss, I don't know who he is, massive anticlimax as I win and get shuttled off. Yay! Game complete. In terms of presentation, this game is pretty weak. It's completely unambitious, and the robots, especially the enemies, all look like they're in beta design. The environments are a little bit better, but not good. However, I do need to give credit where it's due in the audio. I think the music is way ahead of its time. I mean, I remember hearing this music when I was playing Call of Duty Black Ops 2 24 hours a day. I mean, it's totally out of date by this point, and it was probably even shit by then, but it was still surprising to hear it from like the 2000s. People were still listening to I'm Blue Dabba Dee Dabba Die at this point. So what do I think? I think there's an interesting idea in this game, but it was executed without a lick of fun involved. They forgot to add that spark. There's a decent challenge in here, and I mostly wanted to keep trying over and over again, unless it was the races, but I don't think I can give this a high score because I didn't really enjoy it. There was variety, but it's lacking in fun. A 3 out of 10. Presentation, a solid 5. I mean, it doesn't look great, but I do need to give credit where it's due for the audio. I think the music is way ahead of its time. And the difficulty, well, just really annoying, a 7 out of 10. Should you go out and buy this? I mean, yeah, if you could pick up for a $5, then why not? Okay, the world is officially mental. Completion time 6.5 hours. Alright, thanks for watching. If you watched all the way through, please leave me a ball emoji in the comments, preferably one that's not broken. That's how I know who the legends are amongst you. Again, if you like this video series, leave a thumbs up, share it to your friends, and maybe even check out my Patreon. You get loads of great stuff, and best of all, you can watch these episodes a week early. You don't need to wait. Our next episode is Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Check the link below. A big shout out to my super producers, Alexander Cato, Brent McLean, FF14 Best RPG, Vey, Sven Nowlertz, Wixit, Josh Foot, Punky Dudester, and Germonic.